G'day and welcome to another episode of Kiwi Car Life, and in carrying on the tradition of the comparison videos that I've been doing with both my Accord for a number of years and now with my Z4, we're comparing it with the ultimate roadster, the Honda S2000. It's amazing to think that 10 years separates these two cars. Mine's a 2009, this is a 1999, and yet the S2000's design is just so incredibly timeless. My Z4, on the other hand, I think it looks really cool, finished in the white and black paint theme. It's just a beautiful looking car, as is the S2000. The engines fitted to these two cars are both pointing in the same direction, but if you take a look under the S2000's bonnet, you'd be like, where is the engine? Because it's so tiny. It's got an F20C, it's a 2-litre inline 4. It makes 177 kilowatt and 206 Newton meters. So these were known for having some of the highest specific output of a naturally aspirated engine. In fact, it held that title all the way until 2009 when the Ferrari 458 came along. But naturally, it's rear-wheel drive, it's got a 6-speed manual, that was the only transmission option available with these, and it has a limited slip diff, which is really nice. You compare that to my Z4, this has an N52 B25, which is a 2.5 litre straight 6. It makes 150 kilowatt, which is obviously a little bit less than this, but it makes 250 Newton meters of torque, which is a lot more than this, and both of those come in at much more reasonable RPM ranges. And in the case of mine, it's paired up with a ZF 6-speed automatic, which is actually a really good automatic transmission. It has a sport mode, which allows it to really quicken up the shifts, and it's also rear-wheel drive naturally, but it doesn't have a limited slip diff. And in the UK, you could also get these with a 6-speed manual, but in New Zealand, they pretty much don't exist. Sitting in the interior of the Z4, the first thing you notice is that, surprisingly, compared with the S2000, you sit gotta be 20 centimeters lower. The whole car sort of just engulfs you, whereas in the S2000 you kind of feel like you're sitting on the car, you know, right up here, kind of looking down on the bonnet rather than sitting in it. It's just the interior that you want to live with every day. It's a lot more comfortable, it's way more spacious, has way more features, reversing camera, Bluetooth, navigation, but you can put the screen down, dim all the lights on the interior and forget about all the buttons everywhere and just focus on driving if you really want, and for that reason it's just absolutely fantastic. The S2000's interior by comparison though is tiny. The seats are way more aggressively bolstered, but the steering wheel feels really nice. It's right here, easy to use. All of the switch gear feels fantastic. Build quality on the inside of here is actually really nice, especially for a nearly 25-year-old car. The leather and carpets and plastics and stuff are all very, very nice. The gauges look really cool with the way the old school LCD display shows your tach right at the top there and your digital speedometer, and the transmission feels absolutely amazing on the inside of this car. But the Z4 is definitely the more comfortable, featuresome and practical one. This is the car that you just want to drive. Speaking of which, let's go and do that. 3, 2, 1, go. Mate, as suspected, the torque of the Z4 just annihilated this thing. 3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go. Definitely the S2000 has more power, but the torque of the straight 6 does make a difference. And I'm not going to say that it won, but put up a bit of a fight, which is quite good. I'm quite proud of that. Driving the Honda S2000, it's about 10 times more raw and much more just invigorating to drive. And then you combine that with the fact that it's a limited slip diff at the back. It's got immediate throttle response from a cable throttle rather than an electronic throttle, an amazing feeling manual transmission, and it is definitely, I guess, the driver's pick. If you want a car that is just fantastic to drive, this is on another level, and every time I get in one I'm like, oh, it just gets even better every single time. The best part has got to be this engine. You know, the one in the Z4 you can find in so many other BMWs, and it sounds good, but it doesn't sound like this. Oh my word, it is amazing how good this engine sounds. Now, it is a flawed engine, right? It's got no torque. You're really waiting for the power, that's for sure, and you have to work it. And that is definitely one advantage of the Z4 in that regard, where the engine just never feels gutless. It always has enough torque, enough power to power you along. It's a very smooth and linear power band, as with most BMW straight sixes, and it has the torque where you would have seen in the rolling races at the lower RPM tests, it actually got the initial jump because this thing just makes no torque anywhere below like 6,000 RPM. Oh my goodness. In terms of just the dynamics of the car, the balance of the chassis, the quality of the gear change, the sound, the throttle response, the way the clutch and brakes and everything work, even just simple stuff like how the indicators feel behind the steering wheel here, it all just comes together to create a truly fantastic package. So I've just jumped straight out of the S2000 and into the Z4. First thing I notice immediately, steering is lighter, but feels more direct. The S2000 has a lot more quickness on center. This one, you know, you can kind of see, you move the wheel, not really a whole lot happens, whereas the S2000 would be darting one way or another. But then once you get into the turn, I think I prefer the Z4 steering, which is interesting. Then the other thing I noticed, this rides so much better, which is really surprising because it's got 17s, whereas the S2 only has 16s. So you'd expect with a fatter sidewall it would ride better, but nope, this one is definitely way more comfortable, way less jittery. And the torque, oh my goodness, you can just feel the torque. The S2000 just has nothing. Whereas this, you know, like 2,500 RPM, foot down, you just feel it shove you along. I don't really miss the manual that much. Obviously it's better, obviously. But the thing is, the auto in this car is so good where it responds very organically to what you want it to do, whether you have it in auto mode or manual mode, which is really nice. And it locks up the torque converter too, which just helps to give this car that slightly more sort of direct feeling. And it is a lot of fun to drive. It goes really well. Gets a little sideways if you want. Oh yeah. And it's pretty quick, not as fast as the S2 as you would have seen. In almost every rolling race we did, the S2000 was definitely faster once it can get into the power band. But I guess what's nice about it is that it's usable power. The S2000, you really have to work to make it go. This is the much more usable, daily drivable car, but the S2000 has way better throttle response, a much more exciting, lively engine that revs way high, 2,000 RPM higher, which is heaps. Both of these cars get attention, but a S2000 will be a lot more universally respected. The manual is so good. The engine makes an amazing amount of power for its displacement. It is just a really special car. But I still really like my Z4A. It is a heap of fun, and you can just feel going up this hill in second gear just how much more torque it has. You just don't have to work it anywhere near as hard, you know? You can just... It just wants to go, where suddenly, you know, you can just put your foot down and it just moves along so smoothly and effortlessly, which I just love. So there we go. Thanks very much for watching this episode of Kiwi Car Life. Oh, I love it. Straight six, man. And I will look forward to seeing you again next time.